Welcome to the regular meeting of the Larkspur City Council on Wednesday, May 4th, 2016. We'll take the roll call, please.
Councilmember Hilmer?
Here.
Councilmember Morrison?
Here.
Councilmember Chu? Here. Vice Mayor Aroff?
Here.
Pardon me, Mayor Way.
Here. If you could stand, please stand, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We have no presentation tonight, unless someone sprang one on me and I didn't know. Number 3, in our agenda, we have the approval of the consent calendar. Do I have anyone from the council who would like to remove any item from the consent calendar for discussion? Seeing none. Do I have anyone from the audience who'd like to remove an item from the consent calendar for discussion? Seeing none, then I'll take a motion to accept the consent calendar.
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
All right, all approved?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. On to number 4, the city manager's oral report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of items for you this evening. First is earlier today, some of your staff, including myself, had a meeting with representatives of the Larkspur Marina Property Owners Association, having discussions about the current state of the lagoon. Folks may not be aware there's a lagoon in the middle of the marina area. We're planning on having a community meeting for the neighborhood, but doing it as a noticed council meeting so that any and all of you can attend if you would like. And we're realizing there's been a lot of turnover of residents, and so there's a need to sort of re-educate everybody about that particular body of water and how it operates and what our relationship should be. It was a very good meeting, and I think we'll make some progress on building a long-term plan to keep that body of water sustainable and healthy. So don't have a date yet, but please be on the lookout, and we'll announce when that community meeting is going to happen. Some activity around town that's been noticeable. The chucklings, I think, probably because we'll start with pavement. We've launched the annual pavement program work for this fiscal year. You may recall this fiscal year we scheduled the work for the spring because we were able to get a better price on asphalt by waiting till the spring versus had we done it last fall. We are starting with some spot work up and down Magnolia, and we know that caught folks a little unaware. We're working on making sure our messaging in the future is a little stronger so that folks aren't quite caught off guard, although I think now that the work's happening, folks are realizing it's not a full-blown paving job. So, I had my own challenges getting to park at City Hall, but then within an hour, all the work had moved on, and it was like they hadn't really been there other than the new pavement. So this particular work being done on Magnolia right now is to smooth the road over where there's been a lot of dig outs and trench cuts on Magnolia. As you know, the vast majority of our pavement program, which is primarily funded from the Measure C sales tax that was passed by the voters, is directed toward residential areas because we don't have other monies available to us for residential streets. We have grant monies often available for our arterials like Magnolia. In this case, though, we also use Measure C monies to pair with monies we've collected from permits and from utilities as they do these trench cuts and dig outs, and it was appropriate to do this work on Magnolia. And we apologize for any confusion or inconvenience. And I really want to thank our interim director, Ray Razabi. He recognized some of the confusion, and he personally today delivered letters to businesses in the downtown with a more detailed explanation of what's going on, and I imagine had some interesting conversations along the way. So thank you, Ray, for doing that. It would not be a city manager's report if I didn't point out we're still working on City Hall. But as we laugh at ourselves, we're excited that we really do see the finish line for the exterior work, and I hope people are getting excited to see the outside take shape again. And I think for the first time, folks can see the historical touch that we're restoring up on the balcony, where you can see those two cuts we'll be putting in railing, which was the original design of City Hall. So I think that will really pop when it's done and restore that balcony to more of an amenity than it's been in quite a while. We're very excited about that. We're still a little dusty here in the lobby of the second floor. I'm told the dust will be taken care of here shortly, and service to all our bathrooms throughout the facility will be restored. I have a feeling we're not real popular with the library patrons right now because they're having to line up for the one bathroom downstairs. But we'll get that resolved. I also want to let the council know we try to keep everybody informed when there's retirements. And sometimes there's a retirement I really want to single out for you. And before you meet again next week, Officer Patty Monhay is going to retire from the Central Maine Police Authority. And it's scheduled for May 12th. Is that right, Mike? That's what I have in an email. Yeah. So that's next Thursday, May 12th. At 11 a.m., they're going to do a ceremony for her. I want the community to be aware, we're very blessed in Larkspur and in Corte Madera over the years that our public safety folks have done a lot of fundraising. I didn't even appreciate until recently that our fundraising efforts here in Larkspur and Corte Madera have grown to include public safety folks from all over the county who come down to help. Patty Monhay is really the reason that happens. That's been one of her additional passions for the department. And over the years, it's been staggering, the Toys for Tot drives. And most recently, they did a really nice event to do bagging of groceries over at Molly Stone's and raised several $1,000s for Special Olympics. By just doing that, talking to the community, those are the types of things Patty's been doing for years in the background with very little fanfare. And we're going to miss her, and hopefully she'll still be around the community, and maybe we can still tap her as a resource going forward. And I suspect anybody who's listening to me now who went through our schools in the last 10 to 15 years knows who Patty is too, because she's been very active in the school community, done a lot of work in that regard. And again, I'm just going to really miss her and want to thank her. And unfortunately, I have a meeting when she's retiring, so I've conveyed my best wishes for her and encourage you if you can be at Central Maine at 11 a.m. The other thing is Central Maine's starting a new ceremonial process for retirements, and so the first time they go through it, and I'm not going to let Mike talk about it because I want it to be a surprise, but it sounds really exciting. So that'll be my teaser that you go see the new ceremony they're going to be doing for retirements. So,
question for the mayor. Would the mayor and the council think it appropriate that we tonight give the mayor authorization to prepare a proclamation for Patty's retirement on May 12th, even proclaiming that day in her honor? And then you can do the details.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
I would move that.
that's very nice. Thank you. That's very nice.
I think we should also make sure, and maybe you already have, that the school principals and who've worked with her as a resource officer know of that date too. Probably be nice.
Other than that, I think tonight during the presentation from the departments, a lot of the things I might otherwise fill you in on, they're going to cover. But as you know, I just want to remind you, tonight's sort of the lighter side of our budget process where the departments get to shine a little bit and you get a chance to aggressively, gently, teasingly grill them. But we do have other more serious budget agenda coming up. So just a reminder, your second meeting in May, we'll start to really dive into 5-year projections, and some of our concerns we'll vet in detail for you. And then at your June meetings, we'll really get into the budget with the goal of an adoption, we think, at your second June meeting. So that's our target, but we'll be doing budget at each of the next 3 meetings as part of your schedule. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any questions of the city manager?
Just a statement, Dan, next door, it talked about the Magnolia pavement, so that was really helpful to see. And it cleared up some questions.
I thank you, Councilmember Morrison. I was remiss to note we are social media savvy now. we are out there on Nextdoor, and we are out there on Facebook. And just a reminder, on Nextdoor, we cannot read what people are posting unless they actually respond to us. But we're now able to put information out there. And I want to thank people in the community who are letting us know what we need to address, because that's really helpful. If there's a conversation going on Nextdoor and you want the city's input, just let us know, and we now have that ability to do that. So,
So the comment back that I read today on Hillview next door, you guys don't
They
get
can't
that.
see it.
So how do we take
just
care?
copy it and forward it to us if you think it's something we ought to be posting information to, and we'll be
Okay.
happy to then process it and address it.
All right, great, thank you.
And on that line, I think also Central Marin Police Authority being on Nextdoor and social media too has been, I think, very helpful. I saw the report last night of the burglars or the attempted break-ins in the Macy's parking lot and the apprehension of the suspect over in San Rafael, which was very nice to see that was promptly posted there. So thank you. All right, no further questions. Then we will go to council members' reports and comments. And I believe I'll start left today. If anybody on the left side has any comments. My goodness, look at this. Actually, I have two then. I just want to inform everybody that Wildfire Preparedness Day, and maybe our police chief was going to talk about this, is on Saturday, May 7th, and our fire department, not police, our fire department will be leading a community event in Madrone Canyon at Dolliver Park. It starts at 10 a.m., and I hope to be there. And I know there'll be some members of the neighborhood response group from that area there. And it involves a fire engine and the park and a history walk and some fire demonstration, if I'm right. Maybe. All right, just don't burn up the canyon. So that's an important thing, and I know a lot of people in that community have been responding that they intend to be there. And then lastly, speaking of the historic things, I did attend the Larkspur Historic Downtown Tour on Saturday that Dick Cunningham and the Heritage Committee does, which involved primarily a walk and talk about City Hall. I encourage everybody to take those tours if you ever get a chance. They're really very nicely attended. About 30 people were there and very interested in hearing about this structure. Great. So now we will move on to public comment. The City Council will hear public comment on matters over which we have jurisdiction. There will be no council discussions since this hasn't been an agendized item. We'll allow no more than 5 minutes to any individual, and unless the council determines otherwise, that total amount of time will be 15 minutes. So I'd like to open this to anyone in the community who'd like to speak and address the council. Please join us, sir. This is being recorded, so it's important to speak into the microphone, and let's make sure it's turned on.
Hello.
Yeah, it is. You can raise it so you can not
Thank
have
you.
to be so uncomfortable. And just identify yourself, and that would be great.
Chuck Maltzon, 71 Riviera Circle, Larkspur.
Thank you.
It's been a long time since I've been here, but it's wonderful to see the changes that have occurred. Been busy, but now that I have just retired a little while ago, about 3 weeks ago, I've got lots of time on my hands. At any rate, I appreciate the video and the meetings that I've been able to observe as I do my channel surfing. There was a couple of items that came up that I feel that is really close to home to me that I would like to bring up. And I remember the one with the CEO from Marin General Hospital and Larkspur being so closely connected. And I believe you, Ms. Morrison, had brought up the helicopter pad. And I remember in the past reading the controversy with the helicopter pad and the whole bit. Well, it kind of hits home close to me because I worked trauma. And I worked with neonates, ICU, as a respiratory practitioner in charge of the airway life support systems and that sort of stuff. And I spent many years doing that. And I know that the subject is controversial, and I know the neighbors don't want the noise and a few other things. You're probably more apt to what they don't like about it. But I would urge you to really support it, because there have been so many cases that I have been involved in personally and on the job, hands-on, where that helicopter would have saved lives. And if everybody would put their position, I know that the noise is a pain in the hiney, and as Mr. Chu and Mr. Hilmer would understand, that noise is a big pain in my hiney as well. But the fact that remains is that it's a very small inconvenience, and that using as a real emergency, the park area is okay. But to get as close to the hospital, to get to the OR, to get those surgeons already prepared that would be in the OR, that would receive that patient, is incredible. And until you have personally experienced it, and I know that it's a small percentage, but overall, the impact to the victim, the patient, and the families, and the quick response and the lives that can be saved really, really, really need to be taken not only into consideration, but hopefully with your wonderful political persuasion, be able to open discuss with the neighborhood that could someday be them, their family members, or their friends, and that Marin General is a Trauma 1 center. It's the only real trauma center that we have in this area. So anyway, I urge you, please, it is not that huge of an inconvenience. But then as I was channel surfing the other day, I was thinking of that. A few weeks ago, we had a problem with my wife, and her airway started closing down. And fortunately, it was on a Saturday, and we were able to get to the ER right away, do the emergency tracheotomy, etc. And I sat there to myself, and I said, what would have happened if this were on a Monday through Friday at the same time? The traffic. There was no way I would have been able to get my wife to the emergency room. She would have suffocated in my car. So as I saw that you want to improve the eastern portion of Doherty, yay team, and I saw I don't know if he was the engineer or he did the plans or whatever, but I saw the plans for the pedestrian and the bicycle. It's supposed to start in June or something. The first thing that popped into my head is the one thing that this needs, that all the neighbors have been concerned about, is an emergency ambulance, fire truck, roadway. Is there any way that one could be incorporated with the pedestrian and bicycle, since you're using your easement along Doherty? Red was giving you some more. Excuse me. Only in an emergency so that those vehicles can get through there at that time. Because it lasts quite a while. And it not only lasts twice, like 8 in the morning, 7 to 8 in the morning, but also at noon to 1:30, and then again 5, 6 to 7. So I would believe that it would be a really good idea, if there's a possibility of being able to do that, would be wonderful, because you can also go down Lucky. If it's backed up to Lucky, some of those parking spots, it should be really used for emergency vehicles during that period of time. Yes?
I just
Oh, okay.
I'm
sorry.
Thank you for your
Well,
comments.
there's a couple of other input that I want to put in that I'm concerned about on the eastern portion of Doherty Drive. And again, Ms. Morrison had brought it up. I remember seeing a video about the trucks going to Marin General and doing all the construction. There's been a long, long, long time. We know that that road is geotechnically compromised. We know that it's on fill land. We know it's on bay mud. We know that there's only 5 feet of dirt on top of that. We also know that there's been a lot of accidents, not just because of the V portion, but also because people go way too fast. They're not complying with a 25-mile-an-hour zone. I believe I talked with Mary's replacement a couple weeks ago. Very, very nice. Thank you. There's no 25-mile-an-hour zones signs on the eastern portion of Doherty. There's one on the east side, Redwood High School side, but it's covered by a tree. So I hope in your budget that you're going to put 25-mile-an-hour signs,
Terrific.
because there are none headed up west. There's not one sign. So you go down Doherty Drive, you see the 2 signs that are lit up. Watch your speed, which always will make somebody more cautious. If that can be duplicated on the eastern side to make these people follow it, because there were lots of accidents, as the gentleman said, as he showed us the report, as I watched it on TV. A lot of that could be mitigated, not just because of the turns and the eyesight, it's also because they're going too fast. They go so fast, they hit the bubbles. And that goes for the same with the trucks. Okay? The trucks have a difficult time navigating those turns. The large truck, which a civil engineer found out, that the circumference of it does not support the large trucks, the 40, 60-foot trailers, without the rear end going into the zone. So anyway,
Thank
if
you,
you
sir.
would please
Yeah.
take those into consideration, get in touch with me, please.
Yeah,
Because we have new people here and they don't know
Yes.
what's going on.
And you're welcome at any time to write a request to Public Works through the website.
Well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this all in letter form and send it
Okay.
to all of you.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay?
And,
Because I think sometimes there's a communication gap.
yeah,
And it doesn't come to you, just like you were told there was, or the guy from the CEO, there was no problems with what was going on. The trucks were a mess.
thank you, sir.
Anyway, thank
and
you.
Also,
The name's Chuck.
great,
It's all right.
Chuck.
See
And
you later.
I would encourage you in your retirement to go to the Marin General Hospital meetings, and then
Well, I'm
since-
semi-retired.
Since it's not our jurisdiction, the hospital, they would love to hear some
No,
of your
but
comments. there,
Doherty
too.
Drive is yours.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public interested in addressing the council on matters that are not on the agenda?
I'm Jeff Gunderson.
Hi, Jeff.
I live at 62 Paseo Way in North Larkspur. And I'm also a member of the library board. And I just wanted to express or reiterate our concerns from the library board about a strong advocate for the library with the passing of Francis Gordon in this interim time, not only in the budget process that is beginning and well underway tonight, but also in the ongoing plans for the Larkspur Library and Community Center as well, and how important that is to have a direct link with a strong library director, and in that situation, both on budget things and with the plans for the new building, too.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Anyone else? You're welcome to join us. Seeing none, then we'll close the public comment period and open number 7, the public hearing. And tonight is 7.1, the fee schedule update. And the council is to hear the staff report and adopt a resolution about the fee schedule.
Madam Mayor, we discovered after your public hearing at your last meeting that the attachment, the actual fee schedule that was attached to your agenda was an incorrect version of the fee schedule. The one that we presented at the last public hearing is now attached. We felt it was appropriate to redo the hearings with the correct information in front of you. Nothing's different, though, from our presentation. It's mostly across the board. The index increase with some adjustments occurring in planning and building fees, and some other adjustments that occurred in the child care center that are different than the index. And we'd ask that you approve the fee schedule.
Okay. Are there any questions of the city manager from the council? No questions? Are there any questions? So I'll open this up for the public hearing for any questions or discussion from the audience. Join us if you'd like. Seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for further discussion. Is there any further discussion? Then I'll accept a motion.
I'd be happy to make a motion.
Sure.
I'd like to move adoption of resolution number 2716, amending the fee schedule of the city of Larkspur.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? Thank you for that, and thank you for that clarification, Kathy and Dan, on that. Now we're on to our business item, 8.1. We have one business item tonight, which is always an interesting introduction to the budgetary process. I appreciated last council meeting when Kathy was able to give us a very interesting overview, and Dan, of where we're to introduce the budget process, and now we're going to hear from each of our fine department heads. Great to see everybody here tonight, and all of you will be presenting to us. So take it away, Dan.
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, just for additional context, it's been our practice now each year to have a session where each department has an opportunity to tell you how they've been doing this year in meeting the goals they had and budget objectives that they had in the current fiscal year, and then to share with you the goals and objectives that they hope to establish and meet in the subsequent fiscal year. When we talk about the subsequent fiscal year, of course, as you know from the overview presentation we gave you at the last meeting, we're facing some challenges, and there will be some significant policy questions that still need to be resolved through the budget process that will begin at the next meeting. And the department head and managers that are present are aware of that and may speak to some of that tonight. Be happy to address questions about that, but I think some of that really deep into the weeds of the policy decisions we will save for another evening, and really tonight try to hit the high points for you of where we are and where we're going. We sent out, for the benefit of the council, the general ledger for the general fund through the end of April, so you have that should you want to ask anything you see in there in terms of trends. Just a reminder to the council that we practice bottom line budgeting across the entire general fund, which means you essentially empower me with the authority to move money across any part of the general fund to deal with issues that are arising. So if you're looking at our real-time data, there are accounts you're going to see that are running negative. Some of those are ones we anticipate will be flat when we reach the end of the year. Some of them we consciously decided to run negative, and we've already identified offset somewhere in the budget. Be happy to answer questions about that. But it's one of the challenges of looking at the real-time data without having myself or Ms. Orm to sort of address for you the decisions that have been made in those contexts. We don't have a scheduled order, but I like to just look down the road and I see that Captain Norton's here. And although the police budget's a little different because it's just one item that just says what the police have identified as their budget contribution, we do and always invite the Central and Police Authority to talk a little bit about their budget and about some of the things they're doing. So I'm going to let Captain Norton kick it off and tell you what's going on at Central Marin.
It's kind of a first for me at one of these meetings. So hopefully I've...
This is also the first year that we don't have Chief Kuzmano and Chief Senate here to pick on one another, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
Us and Scott got along much better. So
you're more than welcome to keep the tradition.
So ours is a little different. Our budget was actually already approved on April 21st by the Police Council with Councilmember Morrison and Councilmember Chu present.
Just a second, you can't hear it.
Okay.
You hear your lovely voice on camera.
All right.
There
Is
you
that better?
go.
So our budget was approved on April 21st by the Police Council, and I'll just give you a quick overview. I'm sure you're all pretty much familiar with it, but our budget's broken into 5 sections: administration, communications, investigations, a juvenile school resource officer section, and field operations, which is our larger patrol section. Each town pays 1/3 of the budget in the sections of administration, communications, and investigations. And the other 2 sections, juvenile school resource officer and field operations, is based on a funding formula that's a 3-year aggregate that's based on calls for service, total crimes, citations, and accidents. So just to give you an idea on your funding formula and how it changed for this upcoming fiscal year from this current fiscal year, Larkspur's share of the funding formula is 33.71%, and last year it was 32.75%. So it did go up about 1% based on, like I said, those calls for service, total crimes, citations, and accidents. Our overall budget did increase this year to a total budget of $11,461,000. Last year, or this current year, it was $10,954,000. That increase of $506,943 is partially offset by some additional revenue we're going to be getting this upcoming fiscal year of $217,000. But that still is an increase of our budget of $289,000 to be shared by the 3 jurisdictions. In a moment, I'll get to why that occurred. There's about 5 factors that cause that, but Larkspur's share is going up this upcoming year $120,000, which is an increase of 3.61%. The reasons for this are there are 5 factors causing this, and one is an increase in salaries for the current sworn and non-sworn that was based on the MOU that was approved, last year. The sworn got a increase of 3.5%, with 1% of that going towards their employer share of retirement, and the non-sworn got a 2% raise. There also was an increase in current health benefits costs for current members, and we also have to pay increased lump sum PERS payments for our current sworn and miscellaneous employees, as well as an increase in lump sum for our retired sworn and miscellaneous employees. We don't control that. That's set by PERS. And we also have an increase in PERS for the normal cost rates. So all of that together is what caused that increase. Those are the 6 factors. And that's pretty much the dollars and cents overview of my portion. But I did want to spend some time, and we didn't spend a lot of time on this at the police council meeting. We more just talked about the dollars and cents, and here's the budget, just like I hit on here. But we didn't get to spend a lot of time talking about some of the accomplishments that the authority achieved in calendar year 2015 and some of the goals. It is included. This is all written out in the budgets I handed out. There's also some copies on the back table if anyone wants to flip through it, and also they're always on our website as well. We have the last 5 years of our budgets are always available on our website, easy to find. If it's okay with the manager, if it's okay for me to hit on a few accomplishments. All right, I don't know what my time limit is, so I'll go quick. Well, there we go. Now it started. That's okay. I remember.
At 10 minutes,
Nothing's changed.
we get to start throwing things at
Oh,
you.
okay, that works.
No.
There's lots of great accomplishments.
You're a large chunk of our budget, so we need to hear
Okay.
about that.
I
But-
pulled out some stuff I thought was kind of neat and accomplishments and wanted to share those.
And then I think what I'll do for setting the rest of the tone for this is if a council member has a question, if it's all right to interrupt you and ask during the course of that time, it might make it flow a little bit easier and get questions answered.
Of course.
And I think Vice Mayor Haroff has one.
Yeah, I just had on the numbers and the increases that we're experiencing relative to the other 2 communities. You know, given the description that you just gave about the factors that went into those increases, it would seem to be more or less ought to be spread equally over the different jurisdictions. But there's, you know, a 3.61% increase for the city of Larkspur, 1.96% increase for San Anselmo.
And
given
now-
the fact that those are all, you know, salary increases and things of that sort, they're hitting you uniformly across the board. Why is there a differential? Is that a function of the cost sharing arrangement?
It is that has to do with the funding formula. The part of it, the salaries, for instance, that is broken into where those officers land. So I'm the patrol captain and I'm in field operations. So my salary gets spread per the funding formula because the work I do is based on calls for service. And my lieutenant is the same way. However, our support services captain, our support service lieutenant, and the chief of police and his assistant is in the administrative section because they work equally, and that's kind of your three-way split.
So really, it'd be really kind of a function of the fact that we have more calls for service within Larkspur than the other communities.
In your calls for service, I have the funding formula here. I was looking at it before the meeting, just reviewing it. The one thing that was interesting was, let me go to calls for service.
Can you refer to, is it in this, can you refer to a page or you're
No, the
okay.
funding formula isn't in the actual budget. It's
All
a
right.
resolution that was, the staff report and resolution was done at the last police council meeting, and it is also available on our website, but I'd be glad to get that to you as well if you're interested.
Dan, you had something you wanted to interject?
Yeah, I thought it might be helpful to just interject that at the time we brought San Anselmo into the authority, one of the things we knew, and Chief Cusimano had talked about quite extensively with the management committee, is that there was going to be a smoothing experience over the first few years of San Anselmo being in the authority, because the way they tracked data in San Anselmo wasn't exactly the way Central Marin tracked its data relative to calls for services, and it was going to take a few years to equalize some of that. So some of what you're seeing, Councilmember Haroff, about cost adjustments is in part we're finally to apples and apples in terms of how we're measuring the variables that are going into the formula. And in the first couple of years, we sort of had to take San Anselmo's data and do our best job to make apples to apples work for those estimates. So we always anticipated that it was likely some of San Anselmo's costs would drop a little, because the way we book, as I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Captain Norton, is the way we were tracking calls for services and the way they were tracking it meant they were showing more calls for services than we would. Our methodology was a little different. So we always did anticipate that about this time there'd be some adjustment for that. And I think going forward, we should see that now be fairly stable.
And the funding formula isn't just how many times you pick up the phone, it's the amount of crime you have too. And where you really see that smoothing process over the last 3 years with the percentages changing, San Anselmo has been slowly going down 1% to 2% each year because their crimes are now being reported all the same. Corte Madera, Larkspur, and San Anselmo were reporting it. And no real surprise to us, but they do have less crime in San Anselmo than Corte Madera and Larkspur. Which I think during a presentation myself and Lieutenant Khalili gave, we kind of explained some of that because of the corridor with the freeway and the Richmond Bridge. It's not so much how many times people are picking up the phone and asking for, I have a barking dog or parking enforcement. That's staying pretty standard. It's really the amount of crime data is starting to fluctuate it, but we do expect it to kind of even off here eventually in the next year, hopefully.
Yeah, that's helpful, and Dan, thank you for your further explanation of that, because that actually is in a way more helpful in my understanding about the differentials this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, believe me, when I saw the first cut of data, I didn't exactly turn cartwheels when I realized what would happen, but we were warned that this was likely methodologically. So,
Larry?
Yeah, just real quick to give you some illustrative numbers. In terms of total crimes, Larkspur is 38.72, Corte Madera 33.52, and San Anselmo 27.76. So you can see how that kind of lines up with the way the allocations have been made, at least in that order.
Also, just in terms of the percentages for the funding formula, I'm not sure they're in the budget, but I have them here. Larkspur is, like I said, 33.71. San Anselmo is 38.43 still, so they still are high. They just started off, I think, when we first merged in the low 40s.
Okay, thank you. Continue on with your accolades. I'd like to hear those.
Now I get at some of the good stuff. So these are just a few things I picked out of the budget that you were presented, and it goes across all the parts of our department. But in training, we did a lot of training this last year. We spent a lot of time, this is the whole department got this training, on use of force, taser, firearms, patrol rifle, but more importantly, we spent a lot of time on de-escalation techniques, which we've always done, but that is the ability of our officers. If they have to use these methods of force, they can, and they're able to, and they're competent. But more importantly, how do we avoid using them? How do we talk someone down? How do we talk them into being more compliant? We also did a lot of training on domestic violence, first aid and CPR, as well as critical incident response for our officers. Our chief in the department won the ACLU award for the work we've done with youth court as an alternative way of dealing with juveniles who commit crimes. We also received $450,000 in state and federal grants, which every dollar we get from the state and federal government is less the communities, and we have to ask you for when we come to budget time, which is nice. We began using a press information officer on I always say contracted with her, and I know Dan will say that's incorrect, but it's we have an employment agreement on an hourly rate for a press information officer, and not only has that helped us with our press releases, but we recently are getting much more involved in other forms of social media. So we'll put press releases out on Nextdoor and Nextdoor, but we're really making a big push for Facebook and Twitter so people can see some of the day-to-day things we do, some of the smaller incidents that don't necessarily warrant a one-page press release. So if anyone listening or present is interested, please feel free, just on Facebook or Twitter, just type in Central Marin Police, and please like and follow us. And it feels like we're doing that work and someone's paying attention, which is nice. We had an organizational analysis and performance review done by an outside chief who looked at all aspects of our department and gave us rooms for improvement, and we went over that with the police council, and we've started implementing a lot of those suggestions, and we're working towards other ones. We did a 3-day-long team building strategy session with all our supervisors, which we found was very good at getting our productivity to increase and to get a lot of these goals met. We finished our transition of our dispatch to the sheriff, and that's resulted in roughly a $500,000 savings for the authority by doing that. In investigations, lots of good cases we did. 2 ones that jumped out at me were we had a simple traffic stop that led to a marijuana for sales case, which then led through the Major Crimes Task Force to a major marijuana trafficking search warrant situation that enabled, it ended up involving about 3 search warrants, and we have a lot of, hopefully, asset forfeiture from these residences, cash seized as well as residences. Hopefully that'll help us buy equipment and do some education for the public, and that should be pretty sizable. We also did an investigation in San Anselmo of a family member. This is a real tragic one, but it was a family member who had been basically raping a child, also a family member. And our investigations team did a great job with that, doing everything that was necessary, getting a conviction, and they were recently sentenced to 46 years in prison. So awesome. They're very proud of that. And we also participated in the county human trafficking operations, which have been, we sometimes do those in our town, sometimes in San Rafael, sometimes in Novato, and those are pretty interesting. It's kind of like a local version of To Catch a Predator. And we have some of our detectives pose online as minors, and we try and get people to come to hotels, and then we deal with them when they get there. So those are also ones I'm personally proud of. We did another interesting thing in investigations where we merged our school resource officer position with our juvenile detective and made them both hybrids. So they're cross-trained now, because someone goes on vacation or they're at training or whatever. We used to kind of have one or the other, and we'd plug and play. But now there truly are the same 2 people doing the same job, and they're very interchangeable. So it's great when we have a major situation at Redwood and Drake, we have someone equally competent to go out and handle both at the same time. So that's really exciting. We also continued our participation in Twin Cities Coalition on Healthy Youth and the Ross Valley Healthy Communitive Collaborative. Traffic also saw a lot of changes this last year. We increased our team from 4 to 5 by pulling 1 person off patrol. And they received a $170,000 state grant to do solely traffic operations. A lot of this we use for a little bit for equipment, but most of it is done to pay overtime to our officers to come in on days off to do nothing but certain special operations. So you've probably seen that. It's our pedestrian operations. It could be we have an officer doing nothing but looking for people talking on cell phones that day or not wearing a seatbelt. And we've had a lot of success with that. And that's education as well as enforcement. And we got our license plate reader camera on East Sir Francis Drake up and running, for those of you that weren't aware of that, over by, I won't say exactly where it is, but it's kind of near the ferry terminal. And that captures license plates coming and going and basically does a quick check and sees if it's a stolen vehicle. And we've recovered several stolen vehicles in that manner recently. For instance, the one yesterday was not a stolen vehicle. That was actually a rental car. But not only, it was abandoned. That's a difference. That was an interesting one. But it also is very helpful when we have serious crime. We can go back, and that helped us get one of our major leads in the shooting we had in Larkspur. By the movie theater, those of you remember that attempted murder, that played a major role in our investigation and will also play a major role in the trial and conviction of those 2 as well. So it's a great tool. And that was paid for entirely by a $137,000 grant from the federal government. So these are all kind of some cool things that didn't cost, well, it cost the taxpayers money because you pay federal taxes, but it wasn't directly the city of Larkspur. And we also, most people, I don't wear one because I don't deal with the public a whole lot, but all our other officers, you'll notice, have a little, looks like a pager on the front of their uniforms now. And those are body cameras. And we did that in an effort to be transparent. Community didn't really cry for it like they have in other jurisdictions, and I think that's because we have a good relationship with our community and they trust us, but we wanted to do it regardless. It's actually been really helpful. Had some great evidence to use for convictions and arrests already, and it's also helped with some complaints that have come against officers where we have that readily available, and it's not so much trying to figure out a he said, she said situation. We can just go right to the tape and take a look, and it's pretty obvious. quickly, some of our main goals for the rest of this year is we're going to have a Citizen Academy. We're in the early stages of that, and I'm excited about this. This is going to be in September, October. It's going to be an 8-week program where probably the first time we roll it out, we're only going to have about 15 people in there, hopefully from all 3 jurisdictions. We'll be putting more information out on that, and if you didn't get in this one, we'll get you on the list for the next one, but that's going to be exciting. It's 8 weeks. We're going to have all our officers teaching classes, and it's kind of a citizen police academy, for lack of a better term. And we're hoping some of the graduates from that go on to be some of our volunteers if they're interested and they like what they heard.
Do you have an age restriction on that? Can 16, 17, 18-year-olds do it, or is it only adults?
I'm not sure. That's actually a good question.
Okay.
I know other agencies do one more for younger individuals. This one will probably be adults, but that's a good point. We'll look into doing a...
Some might be seniors in high school who want to go to the academy.
Yeah.
Might find that to be an interesting experience.
So, yeah, they do have, I know in other jurisdictions, they do it for younger students. So maybe we'll start with this, and I think that would be a great idea, though.
Okay, thanks.
And we're also going to be further examining the feasibility of online reporting. And what that would be is just another option for our community. A lot of times people have their car gets gone through and their fast track gets stolen, and they want to make a quick police report, but they don't want to either come to our station or have an officer come to their house for whatever reason. This would just be another option where they could go to our website and actually type up their own report. We would review it, and it would be an official report in that manner. And we have this isn't that exciting, but we're doing, for us it's a big deal. The dispatch up at the sheriff is doing a major software transition, and we're going to be completing that transition with our officers. So what they're seeing in their cars is completely different, and it's kind of buggy right now, but it's a major IT project that we're working on that we'll have completed by the end of the year. We'll also be applying for a new traffic grant, as those are yearly. In this one, we're going to be applying for the same amount of overtime, but for more equipment in a way to save money and kind of help restore our fleet. And we'll also be applying for an alcohol beverage control grant so we can do some enforcement regarding establishments that sell and serve liquor.
Great.
That's pretty much it.
Any questions of Captain Norton?
Yes.
I have one, and maybe I can follow up afterwards. Get into if there's more detail. The data received in the vehicles. Over what network is that carried?
The license plate reader?
No. The data terminals that are in the cars.
Over what network that is? It's cellular. I do not know which one.
It's cellular.
Yeah.
Dual, AT&T and Verizon.
But it's over the commercial networks. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. I guess we'll
Just
be
one
taking-
question. Can we go for a ride in the new BMW motorcycle?
Well, if you have an M1, we could probably arrange something.
That's all I care about.
I'd like to suggest we stick with public safety. And Mike
I'm
took all
ready.
your time, so you have like 1 minute.
Oh. Well, I heard Corte Madeira's meeting went till 1 o'clock last night, so we're not going to do
We
that.
can beat
one.
that.
We could be.
We're going to try.
Oh, did they?
Timing. See if I can comply. Go.
So could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Scott Schertz. I am your interim fire chief. And I would just like to, I'm not going to cover any hard numbers with you tonight. I'm just going to cover accomplishments and challenges and goals. I was told we were going to be saving the hard numbers for future meetings. So starting with the current fiscal year, some of our accomplishments, well, let me just start with, as you know, Chief Senate retired right at the fiscal year. So I took over on July 1st and have had a chance to steer the ship for the entire fiscal year up to date. So for me, that was one of our accomplishments.
Hasn't crashed yet, right?
And soon after I took over, I was notified by ISO that they would be showing up very soon to do a very extensive inspection and evaluation of our fire department to adjust or maintain the ISO rating that we hold.
Can you tell people what ISO stands
It's
for?
Insurance Services Office.
Thank you.
And it's an agency that is used to evaluate and rate fire department capabilities, and those ratings are used to help insurance companies set their rates for the community. And so following our inspection and evaluation, we actually had our ISO rating improved to a Class 2. We were previously a Class 3. And so that should have a positive effect on many people's insurance rates. In some cases, it's relatively small, but in some cases, it's significant. So that was just very nice for us to experience an upgrade in our rating. Made us feel like we're doing a good job, and we're serving the citizens as best we can. So we've also made significant progress toward enhanced shared services with Corte Madera, which I know that you're all up to speed on the fact that we are pursuing that. We are now sharing a fire chief, a deputy chief, an admin assistant, and we're sharing overtime staffing with Corte Madera Fire on a mandatory overtime basis. So if we're unable to fill an overtime shift with personnel from the department where the overtime was generated, it goes to members of the other agency, and if they're available, they can fill it. So we're basically starting to kind of mix personnel and work on each other's equipment and together as mixed crews. And that's been very successful. And then historically, when we've had to do that, we've invoiced the other agency so that we cover our costs. We also this year supported a regional fire academy in San Rafael that we participated in and helped put on. And we successfully guided our newest firefighter, Brian Peterson, through his year of probation. He was our first firefighter that went through the regional academy that we participated in, and he's done a great job. We also successfully managed a hazardous materials incident involving radioactive material in a residential garage. That was also soon after I took over. It was great. But it highlights our involvement and the importance of our continued involvement in regional JPAs, such as the Hazardous Materials Response JPA that we pay into each year. That was a great example of an incident where we relied on that team to come out and help us manage and mitigate that incident.
Just out of curiosity, what was the nature of the radioactive material?
It was a retired chemist who had passed away, and his son was going through the belongings and found some packages in the garage that had warning labels on it that he wasn't comfortable with. So
I think it was in your neighborhood.
Anyway,
we do that over there.
It all went well.
Those green lizards have a reason.
Just stay away from my home.
Thanks. We also sent firefighting crews to 10 major incidents outside of the county through our participation in the California Master Mutual Aid Agreement. And just so you know, all overtime that's incurred and equipment expense that's incurred when we leave the county on these Master Mutual Aid responses is fully reimbursed. I'm sorry?
Did they actually pay us back?
They did. We are fully reimbursed for this last year, yes. We did have some trouble a few years ago when the state was quite slow in getting the money back to us, but they seem to have tightened everything up, and the process is working well now. That also provides us with some very valuable firefighting experience for our personnel that they really wouldn't get otherwise. We do have vegetation fire incidents in the county, but they just historically, thank goodness, they don't compare to some of the stuff that our firefighters see when they leave the county and hit some of these really large campaign fires. So they get some really great experience to bring back into their day-to-day work here. And finally, we completed entry-level firefighter recruitment and testing process just recently, and our newest firefighter is scheduled to begin our regional recruit academy on May 16th. We're actually going to bring him on May 9th for his first day of orientation here, and he's getting shipped out to the San Rafael Academy that we participate in as well on May 16th. So we're excited about that. He's He's a high-quality, new, young firefighter that we're excited to get started. We have a number of staff members that continue to pursue leadership roles on regional teams and organizations. I have them all written down here, but I'd just like to call them out. I won't give you all of the things that they're involved with because I'm going to get poked by Dick and Kathy here about my time. But Captain Stasiowski, Captain Timmer, Captain Cobb, Captain Parker, Engineer Walton, Engineer Rutkowski, and Engineer Day have stood out in the past year with their involvement outside the agency on regional teams and associations. Challenges going forward in 2015, 2016, we had reduced staffing due to the retirement of Chief Sennett, and we were also experimenting with freezing a firefighter position, trying to figure out if it would be more cost effective to fill that position with overtime versus a fully benefited employee. And so over the course of this year, we have been down 2 positions, and that just is it's a challenge to manage. We've been able to do it, but I'm very happy that we've gotten our newest firefighter on board. That'll help quite a bit. That still leaves us with 1 firefighter position unfilled, but we're still trying to figure out whether or not we want to move forward with that. I have had some administrative challenges because I am currently managing 2 fire departments that have 2 battalion chiefs and 2 captain positions that are unfilled. And so the battalion chiefs play a huge role in helping with administrative functions, and basically 2/3 of those positions that we would otherwise rely on are vacant right now. So we are moving forward. I'll get to that in the goals. Another challenge that we faced is in fire prevention. We have a part-time contract fire marshal, Doug Archer, who does a great job at handling all of the basics. But the demand for programs and public education services and vegetation management issues is really greater than our staff can handle. And so that will also be addressed in the goals section. Apparatus maintenance and repairs costs is an ongoing challenge that seems to be increasing. The cost of maintaining and repairing the fire apparatus is going up, and unfortunately it's one of the areas that there's really not much that can be done about it. What we do plan to do, though, if we're successful with our consolidation efforts, that will give us an opportunity to most likely reduce our reserve apparatus by 1 piece of equipment. And so at least that will give us some savings in maintenance. Goals. The main focus of the department in the coming year will be to build upon the progress we've made with shared services, primarily with the town of Corte Madera. Our significant milestones that are ahead is adoption of a shared fire services agreement, formation of a joint fire command staff, cross-integration of fire personnel to achieve 24/7 paramedic staffing on all of our engine companies, further integration of fire prevention programs, and possibly a complete consolidation of both departments into a single joint powers authority. And I'd be happy to take any questions if you have anything for me.
Terrific. Any questions from the council? Good job.
Under 10 minutes.
I'm glad you're a newcomer to our community, so we're welcoming you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Looks like we have some members of our audience who are interested in a library and recreation conversation. Can we move to that next? Or are we going to go down the aisle?
We can go in any order you'd like, Madam Mayor.
Maybe we should, because I know we have some board members from the library here and recreation, and then they may depart after that if that's why they're here.
Which would you like to do first?
So, well, Dick looks like he's ready to go with rec.
I have to take Kathy's PowerPoint down.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, then I don't want to mess up that plan.
Dick, why don't you do that while I do the library?
I'll do that now.
I'll be covering the library this evening, Madam Mayor. The fiscal year 15-16 for the library, staff's done an excellent job of containing costs and meeting budget. We will anticipate coming in the black due to staffing vacancies that exist, not by a lot, but by a slight amount. We've held 1 position vacant for the entire fiscal year that was budgeted. That was a library assistant position, and then we've had, after closing out costs, we've had some vacancy savings in the director position. We're still wrestling at this time with how staffing should be done in the library going forward, and I'll talk about that briefly in highlights for 16-17. Probably the most exciting thing that's coming that I think is very specific to Larkspur is we are in line as one of 3 libraries that were left in the will of the Zimmer Family Trust from Mr. Zimmer. And I apologize that I don't know Mr. Zimmer's background, but he left 3 libraries, his estate, and we anticipate receiving roughly $1 million. Or thereabouts.
What?
$1 million. That's what we're being told. I haven't seen the final numbers. Ms. Gordon and I had started making preparations for the receipt of this. We'll do more as this is all kind of in flux. I had to go, the staff had to find me Francis's files so I could start to digest this conversation. But we'll put that into a trust, come to the council. It's specifically left to the library, so it'll go into trust, and we'll use the interest as an endowment. It's pretty exciting. And I say $1 million, it could be 900,000. I'm waiting for but that's what they sort of signaled to us. They sent us the balance sheets for the account, and I think it was over $3 million in the account. So I assume if we're getting 1/3 of that, it's in that ballpark. It's pretty exciting. More details to follow. Yeah. I'm really just kind of picking up on it, but I'm really excited. I don't think the library's ever had an endowment like this in its history. So it's pretty exciting.
Do we know who Mr. Zimmer?
I don't have the background,
so
I apologize. I'll get more information.
Guardian Angel.
I think the Mill Valley Library and one other library was named in the.
Other than the funding be dedicated for library purposes, is there any other restriction on use?
Unfortunately, some of this conversation occurred without me being involved, so we're having to have all the authorities transfer everything into my name so I can see some of the documentation.
So you're sorting it out.
But my understanding is it's just sort of explicitly the library. So, but when Ms. Gordon and I talked about it, the natural thing to do is put the money into trust so the interest can be then applied to the library budget.
Great.
Won't be a tremendous amount of interest today, but as rates rise, it'll be more substantial. So, very exciting. And we will celebrate that way in more detail. I just wanted to let you know because I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that's great.
And then the other big thing that was that's being worked on is our library, as are all the MarinNet libraries, are going to be joining the statewide network for universities and libraries for the internet. Once that process is complete, the bandwidth in the library, one, will be not competing with the rest of City Hall. It'll be its own dedicated bandwidth, and I understand it's going to be a fairly sizable bandwidth so that really users should have a much better experience. We've made no secret of this. We throttle the bandwidth in the library now because it competes with all of City Hall's network, and so if we didn't do that when the kids get here at 3 o'clock, they used to crash our network because they're all getting on the network to look at videos and stuff, and it was killing the system. So it'll be nice to open that back up and allow people to have an experience that I think they would like to have. For the 16-17 year, as I said, staffing issues are in flux. As I indicated, we're looking at a variety of different options for how to move forward. So we're not really at a place where we can propose any one staffing concept. We've looked at everything so far from just status quo to whether or not we ought to combine recreation and library into one department, as we've seen in a number of other cities. I've scheduled meetings with various librarians around the county. Those will be happening over the next couple of weeks to get their input on ideas and whether or not they could offer us any support options in the short term and long term. So until we have those staffing plans sorted out, we're going to attempt to hold the budget best we can as we go through the budget process. We had hoped to bring you some interim solutions to capture some savings. But those were based on what we thought were some administrative bandwidths that we might have in the library. We're not sure we have those. We're going through a process now to evaluate them. If we don't have them, then we can't really accomplish those savings. You know, as the council knows, and you even heard Chief Schertz allude to this, whenever we have a vacancy in the city, we tend to spend a lot of time analyzing options for the city before we simply fill it. Sometimes we hold vacancies for a period of time, and we do interim trials to see what happens. And with respect to the most recent thing we've done in the fire department, we've been studying overtime versus filling positions to see what's a better value. We've done that probably in every department so far that since I've been here. This is the first time we've had significant vacancies in the library. So we're doing the same process we've done with every other department. And unfortunately, though, I'm not sure we'll really be able to achieve some of the savings I had hoped, regardless of which model we put in place. But hope to bring you more data about that as we move forward. And then just a reminder that our ultimate goal is always to make sure service delivery is constant and consistent for our customer base. And right now, I'm proud of library staff for having filled the void that they have currently and maintained service levels. It also speaks well to the Army of part-time employees that we have in the library. And that budget may end up being a little higher than we anticipated this year because we've been using those folks a little more. And we may continue to do so next year. So.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear more about that as we go further into this in the month ahead. But are there any questions about library services at this point? Okay, thank you.
Oh, I did leave off one thing, Madam Mayor.
Oh.
Sorry, I apologize. Let me look at my notes. I'll speak to this later in admin, but because I anticipated admin speaking before this, we're going to be doing a comprehensive fee study for the city. That also includes an overhead analysis. I do want to prepare the council. I've said this to you before. When we do this analysis and we start to really get into the overhead and all the departments, of all the departments in the city, the library has the highest percentage of hidden overhead because for years the city's picked up most of the library's building costs, light costs, copier costs in the general costs of running City Hall. As we push admin and overhead costs into the budget, into the departments to get a true sense of what running a department is, it's going to bring the library budget up because those costs have not been appearing in the budget. They've been in the general fund budget, they just haven't been appearing under the library. So I just want to prepare the council that sometime during the next fiscal year you'll be seeing those numbers captured as we go through the analysis.
Okay, thank you. Dick, are you teed up for recreation? I believe so. Oh, turn your mic on.
Almost. Yes, Madam Mayor, I am teed up and ready to go. Do we have the timer?
I trust you.
Oh, silly.
I can
silly
set this
voice.
one here and give you 3 minutes if that's good. No.
All righty then. That'll be fine. This is accomplishments and challenges last year in this for the Recreation Department. And first and foremost is that the Finance Director says that she's very happy with us. and with that said, I'm going to turn the microphone over. I will not say goodnight. I would like to point to several broad, overarching subjects as well as a couple of anecdotes which I think illustrate the points I'm trying to get across. Accomplishments include continued joint efforts with Corte Madera Recreation. We put brochures together with them. We toss the egg hunt, no pun intended, back and forth each year. This year was our turn, and we're also trying to get together the July 4th fun run. In the lower right-hand corner, you may be able to see in that photo our big bunny. And this year,
really.
Mayor Way was there as well as a couple.
I was not in the bunny costume, however.
No, you were not in the bunny. You were very smart. You said no to that. There was a queue of parents and kids, and they're all 2 and 3 years old, wanting to get their photo taken with the bunny. And one little guy comes up from the side and is just staring at the bunny, not quite sure what to do or how to do it, and finally gathered the courage and walked up and pet the bunny's fur. And at that moment, he just kind of fell into the bunny's lap, and everybody in line was perfectly okay with it. But we've got one of our super school super cool summer school directors inside that bunny costume every year. 300 people attended this particular event, and the main thing was over in 15 minutes, but I think that it points to a nice community event that that people really enjoy. This is our recreation supervisor, Nick Stone. He is still on probation, so he had no say whatsoever in what photo I used. This is Nick hard at work, and in addition to many other things that he has brought to the department this year, we brought him on board at the end of May last year. And he brought with him several great ideas, including the flashlight egg hunt, which I believe you attended as well. It's junior high school kids showing up at the park the night before the regular egg hunt with flashlights, and we expected 35, 40 kids, and there were 200 ready to rock and roll. So Nick is turning in dividends left, right, and center. He's an excellent find. We are certainly missing Supervisor Shannon Clegg, who held that position before he showed up. But Nick has picked up where she has left off and done an exceptional job.
Captain Norton, did 200 teenagers with flashlights behind the police station cause any hair loss? That's a great place to hold that, with teenagers behind the police station.
I would have loved to see my junior officer first spotted. Don't Easter egg hunts last about 2 minutes?
Yeah,
just
they
about.
do.
Just about. Age specific, and then go with the gun, and everybody's out the door. The Super Cool Summer School, that's the abbreviation up there. We are moving right ahead as we have in previous years. Again, I get to tell little anecdotes about these pictures that come along with this. Is Charlie. Charlie's looking a little bit timid in this particular photograph simply because the frog in the foreground was in his mouth a moment before that. Not Charlie's idea, the frog's idea. So we have our moments, and they're good moments. People seem to keep coming back, so we're very happy about that. Again, kudos to our summer school directors, Beth Cease and Aaron Duggan, who do an amazing job every year.
Dick, is that where you do the Makers Fair too?
We've got a Makers class happening.
Okay, I
right
saw
now.
something online of someone really highly recommending that online today, a Makers class that you do.
Absolutely,
Good.
that's another new class that Nick has brought
Good.
to the department. Again, just his way of branching out and finding new program ideas for people to take advantage of. Kathy, to your point, going back to the Super Cool Summer School very briefly, we processed 900 kids through that program in 4 weeks. And I would personally like to invite each and every one of you, call ahead first, please, but we want to give you a tour while summer school is underway this summer. Between June 20th and July 15th, we've got the same number of kids pre-registered, and we can make that happen. I would love to have you see the organization and the fun that these kids experience and the amazing job that our people do.
What's a good time?
That remains to be determined, certainly not the first day. I'll ask you to hold off. Hold off on that day.
What was the end date, Dick?
July 15th.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Not to gloss over anything, the Twin Cities Children's Center is going into 41 years, 39 years under Sandy Petro, and in this day and age where you will see 5 or 6 signs going up and down Doherty saying, hey, summer camp, hey, let's do this, hey, let's do that. They're still holding their own in offering traditional crafts, fun, and taking care of kids. They're a licensed daycare center and have done a magnificent job and continue to do so. Our Larkspur Community Garden we've got a 4-year wait list to join up with us. The Larkspur Walkers have topped 100 plus of mostly senior citizens, very active senior citizens. This is social and fitness, and it's a magnificent thing that former director Nancy Spivey used to run by herself and is now led by about a dozen volunteers, taking her spot. And finally, the Larkspur Larks Seniors Group. It's a more sedentary group that meets twice a month at our community room, and it's led by our daycare employee, Lisa Hess, who's also been with the city for a very long time. And she does a really great job with that, too, with activities. And if nothing else, it's a lunch. It's an opportunity to be social and get together. This is a really big accomplishment this past year that I've been thrilled to be a part of, and that's the working relationship with the Department of Public Works, as well as the Larkspur Public. The Heatherwood Park that's recently come online, the brand new park, the neighbors have been essential in trying to get and putting money together to see these changes take place. The Piper Park sand volleyball courts, one of the courts was done this past year, and the USF Dons women's sand volleyball team was a large part of making that come to pass. And finally, Serenity at Larkspur's donation out at Neighborhood Park in behind the Bed Bath & Beyond is where Neighborhood Park is located, and they donated an entire playground structure, which I know that the mayor and Councilmember Morrison attended. The grand opening for these things. It was also driven by Mary Grace Houlihan, our former Public Works Director. What you see happening here is that the USF women's volleyball team is literally scooping sand into wheelbarrows to get it out of there. We couldn't drive tractors in there for fear of ruining the fabric that's across the bottom. And even the recreation department got involved, driving tractors and scooping shovels full of sand. Thank you very much. We're not sitting back all the time. And this is Councilmember Morrison and Mayor Way, as well as Mary Grace Houlihan at the ribbon cutting at Neighborhood Park for the new facility there. The kids really couldn't wait for the scissors to be brought forward, so you can see them jumping the gun in the background there. Another accomplishment, and Councilmember Chu is well aware of this one, Eagle Scout Jono Chu, he recreated the tennis deck, which existed on the east end of our 4 tennis courts in Piper Park for a very long time, until literally it fell into dust. And it's been gone for the last 3 or 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. No real plan to put it back together until Jono, who is pursuing his Eagle Scout badge, came to Mary Grace Houlihan and said, we'd like to do this. And unfortunately for Jono, but certainly speaking to his stick-to-itiveness, they were out there in the rain putting this thing together, and it has been used every day since. So our thanks go out to Jono and to his crew and to the volunteers and folks who donated to his effort. There will be a ribbon cutting ceremony on that in the early part of June. More accomplishments, increased class offerings for toddlers and grade school children. That is Nick Stone, again, reaching out. That's the Songbirds and the Coding and Maker classes that Mayor Way referred to. Songbirds is for toddlers, and it's on Monday morning, and it's a half hour of kids singing and playing rhythm instruments, and it's a treat to start your Monday off that way. And continued strong cooperation between the Recreation Department and the Larkspur Corte Madera School District. That continues on, and they make things a whole lot easier for us, and I think vice versa. Coming to you in fiscal year 16-17, a lot of park information, but the Canine Commons Dog Park is going to move over as part of the Bon Air Bridge, what's the word I'm looking for?
Mitigation.
Thank you. Mitigation, that's the one. The Piper Park Playground is, we're working on trying to make sure that the existing structure is done away with as soon as possible. And depending on budgets this year, we know that things are very tight. We may end up phasing it in, but we have some alternate playground equipment or features that we can put in the interim. So it's not all is lost. We're not going to be dealing with just a swing set and nothing else. We will have things going in, and then that all needs to be figured out going forward. And then finally, the Piper Park Tennis Court, as Councilmember Morrison will attest, there are cracks appearing in the surfacing there. And I've spoken with the finance director, and we are working on trying to get some resurfacing done so that we can mitigate that liability. Finally, challenges, it all comes down to funding and the big hits that the city is taking this year. The Piper Park Playground, as I referred to in the previous slide, there might be some phasing involved with that. And we're still working on getting in touch with the school district and trying to figure out best fixes for replacing the Hall School synthetic field turf. It's not a from the ground up project, right, but the carpet needs to be replaced, and we keep the safety and liability where they belong. And with that, I have completed my talk. And yes, sir, Councilmember Chu.
Yeah, we had one meeting on that as we all attended.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's been the follow-up to that at this point?
We're still working on discussing financing and the types of infill that we discussed at that first meeting. There are lots of different possibilities, each with their own benefits and drawbacks, but nothing. I'll be talking with the finance director for the district, Yancey Hawkins. I'm going to start that shortly. I think next week, Thursday, we're supposed to be getting together. So at this point in time, nothing's happened in the interim, but it needs to be put together that we need to discuss options and hopefully get that field replaced next summer.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of Mr. Whitley?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I did also want to let the council know that as of last Wednesday, Mr. Whitley is also the acting library director, so he's pulling double duty, and I want to thank him for doing that. And I also want to thank Mr. Stone, Nick Stone's going to take on a little bit additional burden in recreation while Dick is serving in the dual capacity. And so you'll actually see Dick in City Hall a lot more than you normally would. You might not always find him in his quarters down in the rec offices while we continue to solve what our long-term strategy will be.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Who's next? How about Public Works? Welcome to your first budget discussion at Larkspur.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's off.
While they're queuing up their mic, I wanted to let you know I asked Public Works to focus on operations and maintenance and less on CIP, because we'll do CIP as a separate presentation. It tends to take quite a while, as you know. So.
And can you, just for the people who may be listening,
Sorry,
refer
capital improvement projects.
Thank you.
Those are our big projects that are funded outside the general fund. So most of what you're going to hear this evening is what you fund through the general fund.
Thanks.
Yes, we will be coming back to you with the capital improvement project, a big presentation, because we want to make sure we include all the projects that we can next year. But for tonight, we will have our Public Works Superintendent, Bob Quinn, go over the...
Can you hear back there okay? You can? All right. Thanks,
we're going
sorry.
to cover, sure. So we'll cover the CIP at a later date for you with a
Great.
big presentation. Tonight, we'll cover the maintenance activities that we've done during this past year and what we forecast for the upcoming year. Bob Quinn is our Public Works Superintendent, and he will do the presentation, and then we can answer any questions afterwards.
Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. The Department of Public Works maintenance budget is split into two sections, covering streets, which covers the storm drain system, storm pump system, city streets, signs, pavement markings, traffic signals, street lights, city buildings, and most anything that's in the right-of-way infrastructure and vegetation. And parks, which is the fields, the parking lots, bathrooms, irrigation, paths, picnic areas, and anything else that Dick needs us to do. Our budget's flat. It'll be the same as last year. Last year's accomplishments, we were able to clean the storm drains and the gutter cleaning in all of Madrone Canyon, which had not been done for quite a number of years, getting in preparation for El Nino. Heatherwood Park, as Dick talked about, there was a Heatherwood Park playground project, which our crews were extensively involved in. The Piper Park volleyball court we were involved in, and we're still involved in the City Hall remodel. Larkspur Marina Lagoon, a lot of operations this winter with the rain we had, a lot of staff time involved there, and the maintenance that's ongoing with that. Last year's challenges, retirements, and staffing levels, and they're still plaguing us at this point, but we're in the process of hiring right now. Look forward to getting a couple of good people on board. Having lower than normal staffing levels causes a little higher contract services costs. The rain and the unusually warm spring created an explosive vegetative growth around the city, as I'm sure you're all aware of. And the prohibition on spraying for weeds in the city and in the county makes keeping that growth down a little more difficult. And my goals for next year are to complete the hiring process to replace and fully staff our group, to inventory the city-owned assets, and to develop and implement a comprehensive scheduled routine maintenance program for the city assets. Our crews for the next year will be concentrating on routine maintenance, not so much on larger projects, and try to catch back up on everything that we're supposed to take care of. And that's pretty much it.
Go ahead.
I was only going to add, I don't want Bob to undersell how hard everybody's working. We're shorthanded and had a lot of projects, and then the rain complicated things. I know you've heard and we've heard various desires from the community to attack certain issues, and we have them on a list, and Bob and his crew are pounding them out item by item, but there actually is a logic and a pecking order and a strategy to how we hit the parks and the medians and all the different things people are seeing around town. And I know folks are anxious for us to hit them all, and I really want you as a council to be aware and the public to be aware that Bob spends a lot of time making sure that we're doing these in a logical, cost-effective, efficient order, and we just ask people to be a little patient. It's been a challenging period for us, and we'll get through it.
Mm-hmm. Are there any questions of Bob? I just, on a personal note, I often will write on public request to point out something that needs to be looked at, and I'm pleased how quickly you guys respond to that sometimes. An example being, in my neighborhood, I noticed a street lights cover had fallen off and was landed in the street, and I posted that online, and it was taken care of pretty quickly because I know that's a priority for safety reasons. Correct. So I just want to let everybody else know who might be listening that we do have an online request for services portal that goes directly to Public Works for things that they may see that that are specific to repairs that need to be done that are city property. So thank you for that. That street sign that got repaired because I know it was laying in the street. Great. Ray, are you up next? Sure.
I also like the Measure C signs you guys put up. Thank you for that.
Madam Mayor, as I stated, we will come back to you with a presentation on the capital improvement program for next year. We're currently looking at the budget we have available, the amount of funding we have through different sources. We have a big capital improvement budget for next year. It involves quite a few projects, and we'll come back to you with that. Everything from paving to the Bonner Bridge, which is a huge project for us upcoming. We will go through a presentation with PowerPoint on that one and
thank you.
Include that.
Any additional questions of Bob or Ray at this moment? No? All right.
Thanks, Bob.
I have one parting comment. I just want to make sure you have the general ledger. We'll be picking through it more later. It's not going to be the prettiest in Public Works. We had so much turnover. Turnover has costs associated with it. We also brought in contract help, both in the management level and at the operation ground level, to deal with the turnover. So we knew we'd run over in costs this year, and we do have strategies that we're using across the budget to offset those costs. But if you look at the Public Works budget out of context, this is a year when it's going to end up looking pretty high.
And will this ledger and all the other materials be online?
When we present the budget to you, then we give you year-to-date comps of this year's budget against what we're proposing for the next year. But we're always happy to provide budget information to anybody who wants to see it. So it's on.
All right, just making sure people know that that will be available for them to peruse online. Great. Looks like we're moving left.
So who's got a PowerPoint left? Have we done with PowerPoints? Kathy does. Okay. So do you want to cue yours is up? Why don't you go ahead?
All right.
Well, I took this as a chance for me to not present any numbers and to do something very different than a normal finance. So what I'd like to do is to start with
So, Kathy, I'll just take the opportunity to introduce you to people who may be watching. Kathy Oram, who's our finance director.
And I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce the finance department for everybody.
Great.
So what we have here is the finance department. From left to right, we have Maria, who's in payroll, Kathy, me, the finance director, and Jennifer, who does accounts payable, and I'll probably refer to it from here on as being AP. Sometimes my acronyms throw people. She also does the invoicing for Twin Cities Childcare, and anything and everything else that kind of pops up, Jen's been great about handling. She's your first line of sight as you walk in the door. And, you know, finance is always working behind the scenes, and there's a lot of things that we do that we just don't ever talk about. So I just want to really share about some of the things we have accomplished and some things that are coming up. As you walk in, this is our benefit pamphlet cabinet, and it's full of all kinds of benefit information. So if somebody needs to find out about what kind of benefits we have, we are available. It's very well organized. And this also cabinet serves as our invoice date stamping as we receive them in. As you can see, as you walk in, we have our lovely model who posed for us. So as all the invoices come in, we date stamp them so we know what our turnaround time is. So if somebody is saying we haven't been paid, we can say this is when we received our invoices and give them a timeline about when they can see a check back. We did actually have another model lined up for us, but Chief Cusimano did a no-show on us. But that's okay.
Well, we're going to put that on. We're going to dock him on that one.
So, but we got the better model.
Yeah.
Obviously in action. So. So some of the this is our accounts payable files. Jennifer had reorganized accounts payable files from legal to letter size. And also, one of the big accomplishments that she did is we split vendor sets out. So we only had one vendor set for everybody. We split out CMPA, or I say she split out CMPA. So CMPA is now separate from Larkspur. That was a huge undergoing. They have not only separate vendor check set in the system, but they also have their own check stocks with their own logos on it, and their own file. They have their own file drawer line items for their files as well. It's easier to find things. It's more organized, and that was a great undertaking by Jennifer. We also, in our system, we are utilizing templates. So we utilize templates not only for AP, but for general ledger purposes and in payroll. So if all the reoccurring invoices or fees, like some of the big invoices that come in with AT&T, instead of having to rekey every time, we can just pull up a template and go, because it's saving us, it's more efficient, and we're not doing data entry errors. So we've been embracing our new system. Cost savings. We have the check on the left, we have the logo that's in the middle, and the check on the right, we moved the logo over to the left. We were ordering customized envelopes for the logos in the center, so we're cost-saving measure. We now have double window standardized, I know this is all exciting stuff, envelopes. This is finance, though. So we've saved some money in our envelopes.
I can tell you at least Larry's excited by all that finance stuff.
It's the little things. So yeah, it's a cost-saving measure that we did. So now we have standardized envelopes. We don't have to have them custom-made for us. I thought that's a good find as well.
That's the main thing, to save money.
That's right. Payroll files have been transformed. Our older files kind of look like the one on top, and Maria has done a great job of transforming our files. We have two now. We have one for our payroll, and then we have one for HIPAA, or the protected medical files. They all have little tabs, and they're all sectioned off. And as Maria had been working through the new files, we also did she did, she did benefit audits. So we've audited, she did several audits for our benefits to make sure that we have all the correct forms and that we have all the right information for all the people, addresses and dependents, and things change. So we already should be up to date. That was for the whole, both city and CMPA. In the future,
we're finally going to do credit cards.
Well, here we go. This is going to be in the near future. On our left side is what we are currently using, unless, of course, they are the new cards that don't have any readers on them, and we have to write them down by hand. On the right, as we own and have in our possession, our brand new chip reader swipe credit card machine that is so new and innovative that our Tyler does not have the new drivers that we can use.
I have to interject. We had a nice staff lunch function on Friday, and because of turnover, we finally have employees young enough they don't know what the device on the left is.
They're even smaller than that one on the right now, you know, Kathy.
So, Tyler, we have to have it. We're waiting for Tyler to get their software up to date with the new drivers for a chip reader. We can't even use it yet. So, once we do, we will be entering the 21st century really slowly. But we're getting there. Yay!
Well, the bigger issue is the liability, because now the merchant takes it after September 30th.
Correct. I'm not so worried about that, because when the ladies upstairs are taking the credit card information, it all comes down to me for input. So I'll be really happy when this is up and moving, because it's done by hand right now. It's really not efficient, but it's safe. It's really safe.
How many transactions do we get by Visa or by credit card?
In a week or a month.
So I didn't realize many people would use that, huh?
You know, there's quite a few. We also use it, you know, one of the things Jennifer's also working on in the Twin Cities childcare, we have reoccurring credit cards, which is
that makes sense.
Manually entered every month, and we're trying to work with another credit card company and the Easy Care system that is using for Twin Cities childcare financials to have it uploaded directly, because it takes, you know, takes like 4 hours at a time to just do all the invoicing and the updating.
Do our fees take into account the merchant fees?
No, and that was what I was going to comment on. This is a hidden subsidy alert for the council. It's illegal for the city to recoup the fees on credit cards. Only the state of California has exempted itself from that prohibition, but all other levels of government are prohibited, with the exception of, I believe, your assessor can charge a reduced fee for property taxes. So be aware of that. This is actually a hidden subsidy but we really need to offer credit card services at this point. But we pay those fees, and we are not allowed to pass them on to the payer.
So check is always better.
Also coming in the near future, we'll be rolling out ESS, which is our electronic time cards for the city employees. That'll be web-based. So right now we are using it in admin, and the recreation department is up next to bat, and then we'll be rolling it out from there. Part of I want to get in place for public works and the engineering departments is to be direct charging to their projects. So there would be setting up the accounting, so when they go in, they can hit a project as they're entering their time. So I'm going to want to get that set up for July, and so we need to roll that out as well. So those are the things that are on the finance plate. Any questions?
I just wanted to make sure the public is aware how much other additional work that those three people do, including you, which is to manage the financial books for the CMPA and also for the Ross Valley Paramedic Authority. So those are huge those are huge responsibilities. And if you just look at the budget for CMPA that we saw earlier, I'm very impressed that the three of you can manage that so well. With good input from, yeah.
If you'll indulge me for a second, Madam Mayor, I did want to offer a little context, because I suspect that if you see this presentation and you don't know sort of the Larkspur history, you're kind of going, well, it's 2016, really? You just got a credit card machine? And you just got organized personnel files. All of this is really a thank you and a testament to the council and the community for allowing us to spend some of the general fund reserve in the last 4 or 5 years to invest in putting finance in one place. We used to have finance in 2 separate locations with unsecured file cabinets in 4 other locations. We used to have stacks of payroll paper just everywhere. We used to have stacks and stacks of green bar paper everywhere. That was 6 years ago when I got here, so we're not talking way in the deep past. And we asked some very dedicated finance staff that have retired, but we asked them to work in those conditions, and it was really tough. And they did the best they could in those conditions. And I really want to thank you for giving us the money and the resources to have what should be in place. Mm-hmm. And the efficiency is, for I think every department head who's been with us for a while will tell you the efficiencies are now correct. They're what they should be. People get what they need from the finance department in a timely fashion. And that is in no way a statement about the dedication of the past. It's that we didn't put people in a way to succeed. And finance is the hidden department of the city. The public doesn't get touched as much by finance. But they do and just don't realize it, because every counter touch they have with our staff, finance is helping the efficiency in the background, making sure that the maintenance crew has what they need in terms of finance resources, allows them to be more efficient, being sure that Chief Schertz knows exactly how much money he has available for training. Those types of efficiencies are now here, and we really, really do thank you for the investment that you've allowed us to make in those resources.
That's good stuff.
And I really want to thank Kathy and her staff. They probably still can tell you that they're undermanned and overworked. Understaffed, sorry.
We're here to help.
So I think Councilmember Chu had a question, Kathy?
Yeah, you talked about the AP side. On the other side of it, besides unnamed government agencies that owe us money, do we have any, like, deadbeat payers in other areas?
Nope, not at all. No, absolutely. We're very fortunate that way. You know, we don't have. We're very fortunate we don't have utilities, so we are not billing out for water and sewer, because that's usually where you have most of your lags in with the payments.
Okay, that's good.
Great, thank you. Who's up next? Yes, sir.
I just have a comment. I think as far as presentations this evening, and solely for the purposes of ridicule by the other department heads, I think I'd like to say that Kathy's presentation right now is the best one.
She paid us to step down.
And Dick was close, but not nearly as nice as
Well,
Kathy.
he was a bit of a hybrid since he modeled in one and presented in another.
And I say that to set the standard for the remaining presentation.
Why don't we finish the admin by having Cynthia and then me go, and then we will wrap it up with the big show, which is the Planning and Building Department.
Well, once again, I don't have a PowerPoint.
It's a finance thing.
It is a finance thing. I don't have an exciting department.
Not true.
I don't. I don't have anything I pave or build, and I don't do puppet shows, and I don't have poetry readings. I just do day in, day out, usual paperwork stuff. But I did want to say that my assistant and I have gotten a lot done this year thanks to you, because you granted us the capability of getting scanner and a really important plug-in for the Laserfish that creates the ability for us to be anywhere and to be able to hook into the system and to be able to reconstitute whatever we need to do if there's an emergency. So besides it being in the cloud, it scans right into Laserfish. So that, I think, is pretty exciting. Pretty much nobody else does, but that's okay. This year we've answered a lot of emails and processed a lot of public records requests. Election work and planning for upcoming measures and elections for next year. I'm anticipating agenda items and noticing and coordinating with the Larkspur Marina Financing Authority. There's one person on there that I am his favorite phone number, and they're going to do a second part of a dredge, and so I work with him and the engineer and some of the other agencies to just kind of put things together. Last year in my report, I highlighted working with a records consultant, which we've actually had on contract for quite a while, but I just cherry pick her from time to time when we come up with something that's either a new mandate or maybe a department head wants some help with something. So we haven't really used her this year, but I still have her on contract. Laserfish is our, quote, central records system for the city. It's where permanent records are kept. It's not day-to-day work records. So Rebecca has scanned in a lot of documents this year and is currently working on the building files, which take up 3 or 4 tall cases. She's getting those scanned in so that we're on Laserfish, because the records are permanent. You'll be able to open your address, and there'll be, if there's a planning item you've had, it'll be under a planning file, building file. Your documents will be in there. If there's an encroachment permit, that'll be in there. So it's a one-stop shop that you can come in and look at for your records, or if your realtors are using it to see if there's anything, if they're going to be listing a house or permits issued for a home, they can come in and use that. So it's really great. We may be able to put it available to the public through something called the web link, but that's something I'll have to talk to Dan about relative to capability for the public to be able to see documents. They can come in into the office and look at things, but making things available online, I have to be able to allow them to see some things, not all things. We have more items in the cloud than I had anticipated. It seems the more we're in the cloud, the more information needs to be logged. Records destroyed and claims to the city, appeals, FPPC required documents. My goals this year are different than they have been in the past, but it's in reviewing the electronic elections and state filing process to see if that's something that we want to do, so that you would be filing your documents electronically. All election type .460s, Form 700s would all be filed electronically. It's not just real simple process, so we're taking a slower approach to it. I'm preparing for a possible council election 2017, as well as for the RPA measure and if Measure C on the ballot. And I appreciate your hard work and your service to the public and your support of staff. You're really a wonderful council to work with. Not everyone is as caring and as thoughtful as you are with staff. And we really appreciate that, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Cynthia. Any questions?
Just a comment. Thank you for keeping us so organized. Seriously.
And last but not least, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to do the rest of admin, and I'm going to let Neil be the big show to finish out the evening here. So I promise to be quick. I did want to note another sort of forgotten subsidy. We can't recoup full costs by law on Public Records Act requests. And, I think it's an important tool, but it seems like now the public increasingly uses it to sort of ask for everything and anything, and the lost productivity for Cynthia when a massive Public Records Act request comes in, it can't be understated. There's times when some of those come in and the scope are so broad and the language so confusing that we spend a lot of time having Cynthia go back and forth with somebody, just trying to get them to speak in plain English about what it is they want. And I really want to acknowledge she puts a lot of work into that service for the community. For the rest of admin, the most significant investment in the current fiscal year budget was the authorization of a position for assistant to the city manager. And I've gone back and forth about that title because everybody focuses on the word assistant. And, you know, in our world, that title is very significant, and I think advertising that way led to an extraordinarily robust recruitment. We had excellent candidates from all over the state, actually, who applied for the position because that job means something. But I know in the general public, it gets confused what it is. It's an analyst position. And so we're very fortunate now to have Shannon O'Hara on board, who brought the communications tools background and training from her previous job to fulfill one of the council's significant goals for this year, which was to develop a true communications plan. We are working on that, plan to unveil that probably toward the end of the fiscal year. But we have started implementing steps of it, like we announced this evening. We've gone and now have a social media program. The other thing, though, on that analytical side that I can't underscore is for the first time since I've been here, we have an analyst who is in a generalist spot within the city to be responsive to immediate needs without bringing some department to a shutdown so we can do all the research. So, for example, we were doing public works research to understand a facility here in Larkspur all the way back to the 60s. In the past, I would have had to ask the engineering division to stop working and to do that research. And now I have the ability with Shannon to send her into public works, work with the staff, but she's doing all that work so engineering doesn't stop. And so the productivity is not lost while we do the necessary research to continue forward. And that is a cost, a value that's hard to capture in dollars, but can't be undersold on a qualitative basis. And I want to thank the council for that investment. You will see as we go through completing this fiscal year that two costs that probably jump out is we do have significant settlement costs from lawsuits that are in the budget. That's a good and bad. It's bad to see those costs there, but at the risk of jinxing us, we're currently lawsuit free, which is great. And it's the first time since I've been here I can say that, so it's really exciting. I know I just jinxed us, though. We also have a lot of code enforcement costs, and as the council set a goal now to really look at how we do code enforcement and how we recoup some of those costs. We're starting to implement some of the tools that we've talked about to try to balance out some of the costs associated with doing code enforcement. We also had a high level of human resources costs this year that you can see in the budget. Part of that is our practice has been to have all our recruitment and retirement processing in one spot in the budget. We're going to change that practice going forward and show it in the departments where the costs were incurred. I've told the department heads they won't feel that pain, but I want to show it to you where it's associated with. So we won't take operational dollars away from them to do that. But right now it's a big concentrated number, and so it's pretty high this year because we weren't sure going into the year what we would incur. Going forward, we will bring you at your next meeting an proposal to award a comprehensive fee study. As I mentioned, I think it's a critical tool for us to understand our costs. It won't necessarily mean that we'll suddenly see enormous upswing in revenue, but it means you'll have a tool and I'll have a tool to have a genuine policy discussion about how much we want to recoup costs versus how much we want to subsidize our operations. And we haven't really had a good tool for that in quite a number of years. We will also use that fee study to make sure we are in full compliance with how much we're going to charge to the federal government for all these grants in terms of our staff time. We're in compliance now, but we're probably undervaluing our staff time, and after the fee study is done, we'll be able to charge a higher rate, which will recoup some of our costs there. And we'll continue in the upcoming fiscal year to use admin to grow that support role in terms of the research and analysis that we're putting out for you and for the public. So I want to thank the admin team working really hard to make things happen for you. So.
Thanks. Questions?
All right, Neil, that's a lot of pressure you're bringing. You're cleanup today.
Mayor, I do have one more
question.
comment. Planning director, just noting the time. and that you can't possibly do as well as Kathy, Cynthia, or Dick. Just get it over with.
No.
Are you done? Pass?
All done, pass.
Is that a pass?
No, it's not.
Okay, well, I will try to get through this fairly quickly. For one, we didn't have a whole lot of organizational changes this last year. One major one, if you remember in 2014, we had lost the assistant planner, Julia Capazzo. She was really a great resource for the department and the community. In early 2015, we had recruited for an associate planner position. That really wasn't successful. We couldn't find a good fit. We re-recruited for another assistant planner position in last summer, and fortunately, we were lucky to land Nick Armour. He's a bright young guy and really sharp and good with the community. He had barely gotten his feet wet in planning when we started the office remodel, and he was very helpful in assisting and coordinating file relocation, and he was very active in that. So he's quickly learning the ropes of planning and Larkspur, and I think he'll be a valuable asset to our team. Speaking of the remodeling, we've managed to keep up operations in conjunction with all the window repair, waterproofing. The office was operating while in the midst of a lot of construction activity. You're beginning to see the final layout and workflows beginning to take shape. The planners are really in a much better location now to be able to focus on work and not be directly located right there at the counter space. And I think as well, the counter space is a more functional location. There's still a lot of finish work we need to do, but we're looking forward to it, and we're already, I think, getting a lot of better comfort with the location that we've gotten. So again, thank you guys, and I do want to extend a thanks to Mary Grace Houlihan, who really helped push this project and initiate it. I think it was a very optimistic schedule we had, but we'll deal with it, and we're really glad that this is coming to fruition. Other things, I also want to compliment the staff. They've managed to maintain operations, keep up morale, despite the loss of Fire Chief Bob Sinnott. He was a real team player and an extraordinary supporter of the planning and building department. So
I go last, Nick.
So with that, a few of the major highlights of last year, I think I'd reported we had actually issued over 1,000 permits, 1,003 permits. That was higher than the 2 years before, which were actually all the years we issued the Rose Lane permits. So last year was really a matter of finalizing Rose Lane. That was a major project. And also dealing with still a pretty constant permit load. And we're still seeing that continuing. We'll monitor how that proceeds through the summertime. I think we're seeing less of new homes, but a lot of very substantial remodels and improvements, and even some commercial activity as well. We're fortunate to retain the services of Philip Seabrook. Their inspection services and building official services are very flexible and have been pretty effective in keeping us afloat through fluctuating permit times. Other highlights, we assisted Department of Public Works in amending the municipal code to adopt the urban runoff standards and comply with our NPDES permit phase 2. We amended the noise ordinance to restrict work on Sundays and holidays, and we adopted time limits for construction permits. That will go into effect this June. We also adopted JPA resolutions. We assisted the city manager in order to allow PACE financing for our community members. We'll continue to support outreach and update the website to let people know of that option. We had some major code enforcement activities, as Dan had mentioned. finishing up the long ongoing construction at 31 Piedmont meant a continued full court press on the code enforcement to get that done. Lark Creek Shops, that was actually, there was a code enforcement process that went on in order to get them to get corrections underway, to get permits for work that had been done without permits. Finally, that is nearing full occupancy and completion, and I think we're going to have a really interesting, a really vibrant stretch of along here in Magnolia between the 285 Magnolia project and the Lark Creek renovation. Another code enforcement, one of the more significant ones, was the containers and trailers on the bike path behind the Nazari Edifal property. Some of that has been resolved, but it remains ongoing, so we'll keep you abreast of those. We confirmed City Council policy regarding short-term vacation rentals and the approach to the Medical Marijuana and Regulations and Safety Act of 2015. I think the theme of the year is what does happen occasionally is some of our advanced planning projects that we need to engage in really became, again, a bit sidelined with all the work going into Rose Lane and those heavy permit load. The code enforcement, we were working under some of the staffing changes, bringing our staff up to speed, and the remodel project. But it's my, I think the challenge of the new year will be engaging in, re-engaging in the draft general plan and getting that to public hearing hopefully by the end of the year. We're going to be coming to you with a budget and a work program to begin reinitiating that process for public hearing. Other things are amendments to the zoning ordinance for junior second units. We're looking at examples of those ordinances in Novato, San Rafael, and Tiburon. We're going to try to take the best parts of those, see what fits with Larkspur, and also look at how we can incentivize it. None of the communities are really getting a lot of participation, but the programs in those communities really have just started over last year, so we'll keep an eye on that. We'd like to expand the role of the zoning administrator to allow more streamlined review of minor projects. We'll continue to monitor changing regulations on short-term rentals. We are getting some complaints on those. We know we've got a number in the community. And the state, from the latest trends, does not appear to be coming to the rescue on help assisting cities in monitoring those activities. They may be taking in revenues. They're looking at a source for doing that, but they may not assist in tracking and monitoring where those are occurring. We'll also keep an eye on regulations regarding medical marijuana and cannabis-related business activities. The Adult Use of Marijuana Act will be coming to vote in November. There seems to be a possibility that may pass in law, and we'll have to look at having a community discussion around that possibly in the future. Upcoming in Building Department, we'll be adopting the 2016 California Building Code, and I anticipate local amendments will include requirements for permits, adding some permits for flat work that could affect parking, accessibility, and drainage. And we'll continue to work with the CMPA and the city attorney on code enforcement activities, how to streamline nuisance abatement, and maybe rely more on a citation process to get compliance. And that's my report. Do you have any questions?
I think Dan might have something to add.
Well, I did want to particularly thank the planning staff going to this theme of allowing us to build office space that makes sense. It's been 2 iterations to make it right, and the staff that was the most nomadic and probably the most disrupted in both iterations was the planning staff, and I want to thank them for putting up with that, and I hope the reward is now evident. If you get a chance to come visit the planning staff in their new environment, it makes sense now, and you can sense the professional camaraderie that the new environment's fostering. It's just, it took us a while, but I think we've hit that one on the head finally. We just have 2 people in this space, and now we have 4 working pretty efficiently. And I think everyone in the community will really benefit from that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could just add on, I think in recognizing...
No, your time is done, sorry.
When recognizing people, Natalie Bauminer and Joan Lang really bore the brunt of the move because they had to move their desks, function in the council chambers for quite a while under some temporary circumstances, and now they're back into the new location, still working out filing and workflow systems, but they've really took a lot, really had to manage operating under some very challenging conditions.
Great. Are there questions of Neil?
Not a question, but I think one of the things to clarify for the public is when you have an enforcement action, there's sometimes the public perception that we're making money on this, and the fact is,
sorry.
With something like that, you may barely recover the additional staff time that you put into it, and certainly Captain Norton can tell you that we're pennies on a dollar when it comes to giving out a citation. So yeah, it's not a moneymaker for those people who think that it is.
No, there's really, I would say, even with the best system, it's hard to recover all your actual costs. I mean, it's become very challenging to do code enforcement. It's not something we aggressively look forward to at all.
Any other questions?
Only to thank you for coining the phrase vibrant stretch as a descriptor for part of our Magnolia Avenue. I'll be using that phrase to torture you over and over again.
I think you'll see it in the general plan.
Well, I'd just like to close by thanking all of you for attending tonight, and I hope we did this in a timely and efficient manner, which is how Larkspur likes to do things. I really like looking out at such great staff that we have here, and lately I've been attending meetings in Sacramento and in other places where city leaders are getting together, and people often ask me, well, how do you like being on a council in Larkspur? And one of my first responses is, it's a really well-run city. And so it really makes being in this role a cooperative and engaging role to work with all of you. And I mean that because I think we have a very well-run city in which the council doesn't have to spend a lot of time dealing with a lot of the minutia that can happen in cities that are not functioning well. So thank you for that.
I just want to add to that because I think that's absolutely right. And one person that I don't think we've given enough credit tonight for making all of these things happen is our city manager, Dan Schwartz. It's just absolutely evident to me that we have the best city manager in Marin, if not anywhere. And I think we're all grateful for the leadership that you show and the direction that you provide to staff and to council over the course of the year. It's not always easy to do. You have a lot of challenges and a lot of demands on your time. And I just want to know that in addition to the appreciation that we have for everybody in this room, we have special appreciation for you.
I even have a special ringtone on my phone for when he calls.
One of the things that I'd like to point out also is, nothing's perfect even with us, and occasionally we run across some operational inefficiencies. But I don't hardly ever get a complaint specific to an individual. And, you don't get a lot of people who will praise you for what you do. But the fact that we're not getting complaints is a testament to the type of job that you're doing and that you're providing the level of customer service that people expect and appreciate. So thank you. As a side comment, I'll have to vote for Dick's presentation best only because he mentioned my name.
Well, I look forward to continuing this discussion, and I think I feel it's one of the main responsibilities of a city council and of a city is to the fiduciary responsibility to spend the money wisely and well. So we're going to continue and engage in this. And speaking to the audience who may be watching us, I encourage you to continue to delve through our budget items that are going to be online and attend meetings and ask questions because we're all in this together. It's your money that we're deciding how to spend and utilize for the services for the citizens. So we need everyone to participate in this. And at that moment, I think I will accept a A motion to adjourn the meeting? Second?
Second, and my lighthearted comments don't accurately reflect my appreciation for all the hard work you.
It's too late now, Dan. Okay, meeting is adjourned
I knew
at
the camera would
8:40.
be off for that.
Thank you all for being here.